One of the things yesterday that somebody mentioned was, who is a stakeholder? How do you define that? And issues of power imbalance. And one of the things I want to point out is that in Massachusetts, as in most places, we don't engage in stakeholder activities because it's hip. We do it because if you're the state does it because it's required by the Act, and it helps them have a transparent process. And of course, it helps avoid landmines. And avoiding landmines means it's a recognition that from the state's perspective, not all stakeholders are created equal. There are definitely political realities that have to be dealt with if you are the formal body in charge of creating the plan. And that's not a bad thing. That's just a reality. What the partnership does is it tempers that a bit by, our purpose of engaging in the stakeholder activities is because the whole point of that is to have it result in a plan that is enduring, that is implementable because people aren't tossing bombs at it or yellow balls. And so in that sense, at the partnership table, all partners are equal. Those political imbalances have a chance to diminish a bit. Just see. Okay. And these are just very briefly, are these not going to show either? Here we go. These are just some, in addition to the sort of formal stakeholder engagement that we support with the state, these are some of the other tools that we use. And the only thing I want to point out here in particular is you'll see under MOP Partners Events Collaborative Skills Training, one of the things we offered to folks, and it was incredibly well received, this took place I think a couple months ago, we offered a training in collaborative skill building, whether that's joint problem solving or whatever you want to call it, and I was amazed at the number of people that availed themselves of that. These are people from industry, from all walks of the spectrum, and they said, if we're going to really work together as partners, it might be helpful if we sort of developed our skills at actually negotiating jointly. So that was actually very well received. We might even do a second module on that as plan development moves forward. The other thing that we are considering at the moment, it's actually not on this slide, is a partnership capacity building program or minimizing barriers to participation. Essentially what that means is if certain stakeholders, especially in this economic constrained climate, if part of what holds them back from participating in ocean management planning process is that they can't get to the places, and Massachusetts is a lot smaller than the PNCIMA region, then there's ways for us to help them defray their travel costs. It's a very simple tool in order to foster full participation. These following slides are really just quick pictures of some of these stakeholder engagement tools. So this shows our web page and the calendar function that we have, which folks have used very successfully. But it sounds like you guys are well along the way to having all the IT stuff in place. The next slide shows a page that we help the state develop, which is a public input portal. So whether people actually come to a specific meeting or not, they can always submit comments to the state on this portal. For those of you who are interested in the science integration aspect, this slide simply shows how those 4 program areas that I described are fitting in with the plan schedule. This insane diagram simply shows it's not nearly as pretty as the graphic recorder's product up there, but essentially it shows all the state's formal undertakings, the partnership's support of those, and it lays it out on a timeline so that we can explain to people what the process is and where they can fit in. We can explain that to stakeholders. And just as a note, our communications manager is going to turn this, it won't look like this, but into an online and a DVD version of an interactive timeline so that when this whole thing is done, anybody else around the world who is engaging in this can say, what the heck did they do in Massachusetts? And they'll be able to follow a thread through saying, I want to see how they did the science. I want to see how they did the stakeholder stuff. And it'll be an interactive product. So And I think, with that, I will entertain questions.
Take a look at that note.